Hello viewers, welcome to this drawing masterclass. Today we shall learn about an element of art called texture. Now, what is texture? Texture is the roughness or smoothness of a surface. It can be experienced by touch or by sight. There are two main types of texture. We have got the tactile texture and the visual texture. Let's talk about tactile texture first. Tactile texture is also called physical or actual texture. It is the creation of relief forms or three-dimensional forms on a surface for the viewer to experience those forms by touching. We have seen various reliefs even on this earth. This earth is made up of mountains, valleys, plains. All these are reliefs on a surface, and you have to experience them by walking on the surface, touching the surface, climbing the surface. You can even sail on the sea. For example, I have this table, but I can create some reliefs on it and it will become rough. Just place objects, various objects on the surface until it will become rough textured. The surface is not smooth. For you to move from one point to another, you have to either go over these objects or climb them. See, that is, I've created reliefs on a surface. Some of these objects are rough when you touch them. When I touch it with my fingers, it will feel rough. This is called tactile texture. It is experienced by touching. Let's look at this sculpture. This sculpture has some smooth areas. I can touch this sculpture and I feel the smoothness. Although there are some other parts of the sculpture which are rough, I'm now experiencing tactile texture. Tactile texture, we say that it is the surface feel of an object experienced by the sense of touch. The surface can be rough or smooth, shiny or polished, or it can be matte, it can be coarse or slippery, it can be dry, the surface can be dry, or it can be wet. Let's talk about visual texture. Visual texture is also called implied texture. It is also called simulated texture or imitated texture. It is created by drawing the texture on a surface. And when you are trying to create texture, you want to show how it would feel if it were to be touched, although it is not available for touching. Visual texture is seen, it is not felt. You have to see the surface and then you notice whether it is rough or smooth. For example, look at this picture. There's a picture here I want us to look at. It is a painting by an artist called Canaletto. I'm zooming so that you can see clearly. Look at this painting. The title of this topic is Apparicis, the Grand Canal, Venice. The artist is very creative in that he wanted to contrast texture that is visual texture. But there is visual texture which is smooth, and there is visual texture that is rough. On the upper part of this painting, the skies, they have smooth texture. They look smooth. The lower part of the painting, it looks rough. Actually, you cannot touch the roughness to experience it, but you just need to look at it, and then you see it is rough. It is rough textured. And when the artist was creating this painting, he wanted to create some contrast between the smoothness and the roughness, the smooth sky and the rough landscape, so that it looks interesting. You are not bored by this painting. The viewer is captured, and at the same time, the viewer is also attracted by the many forms of the boats on this painting. When we compare this painting with this other painting, this painting is very busy. There are so many points of interest which are attracting the viewer's eyes. There are very many centers of interest, making this painting to be busy, such that the viewer's eyes are overwhelmed, wondering what to look at. Everything requires to be looked at, and you feel as if you are not finding rest. Look at this painting by Picasso. It is so much textured. It has rough texture. It is not the texture that you can see by touching. It is the texture that you can see by seeing. You look at it, you feel it has so much content in it. So many things to view, so many things to look at, so many areas you want to see. That is what is called rough or smooth visual texture. Now that we have learned about rough or smooth visual texture, let's talk about creating visual texture. How do we create visual texture? Visual texture can be created by manipulating lines or playing around with light and shadow, shading the surface, coloring, or even patterning. That is one way of creating visual texture, to create an illusion of depth. For example, we had this, there was a time we had this box here. We had this box, you remember? We created this box and then we put some textures on it, and the texturing that we did was by using a certain technique of shading called cross hatching. I'm texturing this face of the box. I'm texturing it using cross hatching technique of shading. I want to make light textures here, so on this face I will use just hatching. I'll use hatching. So now you can see I've already textured. This paper is not smooth anymore. It has some forms drawn on it, some rough textures. I've created rough texture. Let me even put the background. I'm putting the background on this for this box here. You see, I've already textured this. The paper now looks textured. This paper is no longer smooth. It was smooth. There were no lines. But now I've already textured this paper. I also want to create some other visual textures. You can even scribble to make this surface rough. I'm just texturing. You can pattern. You can pattern. You see, this is called texturing the surface. Remember, we can even texture by shading using contour shading technique. Drawing is a texturing technique. When I'm drawing, I'm texturing the surface I'm drawing on. So texture is a very important element in art because each object has its own type of texture. We shall be learning about the different types of textures in our next lesson. Yeah, remember this, how we shaded the apple using contour shading technique. I'm just texturing the surface. This is just a picture of a nipple. This is not a nipple. You cannot pick it. You cannot remove it from this paper. It is just a creation. It is simulating how a nipple looks like. I'm trying to show an imitation of how a nipple looks like. So this is called texturing. We have done a lot of texturing today. In our next lesson, we shall learn how to draw textures of objects. To draw textures of various objects. That will be our topic for next lesson. I hope that I have shown you how to texture the surface, because texturing is a very, very important topic in art and design, because you create patterns, you create drawings by creating textures. Now, if you have not subscribed, kindly subscribe so that the YouTube will be notifying you of our new videos anytime we publish them. You can also share this video with others free for education purposes. You can kindly comment in the comment section. Tell me how you feel about this technique. Bye for now. Let's meet in the next video.